Hello all, Rick here. Over its years, Starfleet has been under scrutiny from the Federation public and often found itself in the limelight of numerous endeavours. Perception of Starfleet has developed and changed over the years, and I thought to explore just what people thought of the organisation. At its inception, a lot of mankind's hopes and dreams were bound in the organisation. The following endeavours of the NX-01 were highly publicised, as they were the pathfinders for the humans' reach into the unknown. Of course, after a few years, dissatisfaction grew with the attacks of the Xindi spreading xenophobia among humans. Sporadic incidents erupted against any alien on Earth, regardless of their position or status, and eventually Terra Prime organised a full-on crisis, with much of their rage directed at Starfleet for allowing or attempting to forge ties with other cultures. This turmoil was abated, however, with the Earth-Romulan War. While some still blamed Starfleet for inviting this, the fact that support was provided by the Andorians, Tellarites and Vulcans quashed much of the sentiment that the aliens were uniformly no good for society. Clearly, their aid had helped, and as such the founding of the United Federation of Planets was met with a majority of support. In answering to the concerns of the public that Earth was too undefended, the Makos were folded into Starfleet to strengthen it and provide a harder military edge to the primarily explorative organisation. But therein a new issue emerged that would grow over time. Over the next century or so, Starfleet grew and advanced. New ships, new technology from other species, and joining UFP worlds only provided a boon to Earth, and in sharing their differences, advances were made. Overall, the peaceful efforts of Starfleet brought with them benefits, while the militaristic operations continued to protect its expanding territory. Over this time, Starfleet became normalised. The everyday appearance of other species on Earth was embraced. Visitors, workers, and even those now being born there as citizens. The multicultural elements of the Federation encouraged this, and your average Earther saw this as fine. Your everyday citizen of Earth was more often concerned with local affairs, friends, family, pursuing their own development and work rather than geopolitics, and they could afford to be this way. It was the people of the fleet that were out there finding these things for the UFP and risking their lives in the process. Being in Starfleet was respectable. Starfleet is often the centre of attention on Earth, which is understandable. The planet is the capital of the Federation and headquarters for Starfleet. In this way, it sort of became a company town, where many jobs on Earth were based around the local community, Starfleet, or another Federation organisation. Many humans ended up joining Starfleet because of it's convenient and right on their doorstep, leading to the higher than average human count in the fleet. The other factor in how human-centric Starfleet is simply that Earth pretty much lacked any real military of its own, having long ago condensed the Makos into Starfleet, while other powers still maintained their own separate organisations. And this extends to other institutions too. The Daystrom is about the only large science body that is not under Starfleet control, while, for example, the Vulcan Science Council remains its own thing. Still Federation, but not Starfleet. However, this brought up a tangential concern from other Federation organisations, especially research and development orientated ones. Starfleet received and had access to a lot of resources that it often did share, technically without expecting anything in return, but they had, several times in the past, co-opted research projects that had used their facilities. While they seldom steered them in nefarious directions, it could happen, or even the inverse and shut down something they deemed too risky, and it had the developers worried. Allying with Starfleet could accelerate a project, but you'd risk losing it to them. Basically, no other interstellar power bound as much of its structure into the Federation and Starfleet as Earth did. To outside viewers, this meant that Starfleet, the Federation, Earth, and humans were all the same thing. This skew is something that has not gone unnoticed by others, and even been a point of contention before. In the lead up to Khitma, it was one of the many gripes the Klingon Empire had with the Federation, viewing the humans as insidious and spreading under the guise of peace. This was the sentiment that, decades before, had even been used as a rallying cry to incite the Klingon Federation war. Many times, Starfleet has acted in its role as the primary military arm of the Federation, both in wartime and peace, and this has not gone unnoticed by the citizenry. While large-scale events, celebrations of new discoveries and first contacts were news that incited jubilations, conflicts and military operations were increasingly viewed as warmongering or drawing unwanted attention. These were occurring more and more over time as the UFP grew, and the public perception of Starfleet as just explorers was shifting. The command structure resembled a military. Starships were armed with state-of-the-art weaponry, and every officer and non-com was drilled in combat to some degree. Phasers were a part of standard away team kits just as much as a tricorder. The truth of the matter is that Starfleet needs to protect itself and citizenry, which it will do with force or preemptive action if it has to. Almost everyone can agree on this as an unfortunate reality, but the friction arose from defining just what Starfleet deemed as necessary. Rules like the Prime Directive helped with this, but non-interference might only be morally correct 90% of the time. Classified operations only add to this fear, as in the absence of information, rumour and speculation flourish and people are wont to assume the worst. Honestly, half the time classified Starfleet operations are less exciting than they seem and subject to understandable security measures. But sometimes they were covering up dangerous experiments, a new technology, or an illicit act. And those are the instances that people remember. The closer Starfleet acts to a military, the more the public begins to grow concerned. During the Dominion War, when martial law was declared, it filled Earth with a sense of fear that had lasting repercussions. With its level of involvement in so many branches of the Federation, Starfleet wielded great power, so to see it assume authority over everyday life was scary. The reason Starfleet works, however, is that it holds true to compassion, truth and justice. It allows captains a great deal of autonomy in the field to make moral judgment calls, aware that command is not there in person. It shares what it can after the fact, declassifies as much as possible, and answers to the will of the Federation Council, which can ultimately sway any aspect of Starfleet, acting as the checks it requires. What really unnerves people, though, is when Starfleet higher-ups take things into their own hands, using Starfleet's resources, operational security, and influence to undertake their own projects or justify irresponsible acts. When instances such as this come to light, it's down to Starfleet to police itself, which it has shown to be capable of doing, albeit through the acts of individuals, Captain Picard frequently. I would argue that when a rogue admiral is opposed by Sisko, Kirk or Picard, that is the system of checks and balances in action, as in every instance where this occurs our heroes are excused for their insubordination. The system is designed to be challengeable, to hold individuals to account. This brings up another point too, that often this attention centred around individuals among the organisation, both the good and the bad. Picard, Kirk, Una, the crew of Voyager, these all became public figures because of their adventures. As long as it continues to face scrutiny, to be asked questions and retains its dedication to its founding ideals, Starfleet works. But there is always that fear that one day a coup or something similar would see the corruption go unchallenged or unaccounted for. So, to begin with, Starfleet was loved, then seen as being too naive and drawing attention. Then it was loved again during an era of innovation and growth, but growing concerns of its over-militarization crept in. These continued to simmer, with a mixture of hushing and spotlighting events to remain true to its principles. And this is pretty much where Starfleet remains in terms of perception. It's pretty much accepted now that Starfleet is not perfect and is corruptible. But the important part is that when it is uncovered, it is excised, often by those within the system still holding true to its beliefs. Thanks for watching this video on the public opinion of Starfleet. What do you think? I reckon there is more that can be made on this subject because, by definition, it's super subjective. This is just my take. Thanks for watching. I've been Rick, and I'll see you later for another lore video. Until then, thanks again, and goodbye.